Let's begin.
Go, Shiloh, yeah, you can do it. Oh, hey there, scary story fanatics. Welcome back to Cleaving Thought from Bone with your host, Sociopathic. Sorry, I was just going over this book and seeing if there was anything that I missed. Not possible, you say? Well, think again, and ready yourselves by your monitor screens while I cut through the skin of this series and into the connective tissue beneath with a little story that Doughboy420 likes to call Locust Lake, the Journal.
I had been in prison for a crime that I didn't commit. Murder. Several, in fact. The police claimed that I brutally murdered my childhood friends and then followed it up by butchering one of the new owners of the camp. But that wasn't me. I didn't do that. I proclaimed my innocence to this very day, but no one listened. I came to the police station, covered in blood, and told them what happened. How my friends had told me about that rhyme. That fucking rhyme. I wish I never heard it. How many seconds can you take? Holding your breath at Locust Lake. 5. He's at the bottom. 10. He's dead and rotten. 15. He's creeping up. 20. You're out of luck. 25. Right beneath your feet. 30. Pull you down beneath. The words will forever be etched into my mind, and try as I might, I could never forget them. I told them how my friends talked me into going there and proving the rhyme wrong. I didn't think there was any such thing as curses or monsters. But I was wrong. I was a stupid kid, and I was foolish to go there. Monsters are real. I found that out that day when I came up out of the lake and saw Casper stoical, holding a metal pipe, pinning my friends' bloodied heads together. Luckily, or not so much I guess, I escaped from his grasp, but not before finding the eviscerated corpses of the rest of my friends. Anyway, when I told the cops what had happened to me, it looked like they knew what I was talking about, like something like this had happened before. But no one would believe that a ghost story killed them, and they needed someone to pin it on. And sure enough, the 16-year-old kid with literal blood on his hands was the perfect candidate. So, I spent the next few years locked up in a juvenile detention center. And I mean literally locked up. The kids there were bad, but apparently I was on a whole nother level, and they couldn't take the risk of another massacre, so I didn't see much of anyone else there. Then, after that, they sent me to prison, where I remained for quite a while. I don't really know how long it was before I decided to do something. That day, all those years ago, I don't know. I guess I just hated myself for going there with them and not being able to do anything to stop it. Not being able to do anything to stop him. I ran away instead, and despite knowing that as a kid I couldn't do anything about it, I still felt like a coward. But I'm not a kid anymore. After serving some time, you tend to put on some muscle. Not much else to do but work out. I wanted to go back there, and I wanted to kill him, But you can't really seek revenge from inside a prison. Well, you can, but I was nowhere near well off enough, and I didn't know anyone who could help me on the outside. All my friends were dead, after all. So, I came up with a plan to escape, but I wouldn't be able to do it alone. I would need the help of my cellmate, Barney. He's a pretty bulky guy. He had some muscle to him, but also quite a bit of a beer gut. He was bald on top, but still had some hair around the back, and he always had a thick 5 o'clock shadow. The guy told me he was in for several counts of armed robbery, and during the last one, he slipped on some broken glass and ended up cutting his leg pretty good. His accomplices got away, but he was in no shape to be going anywhere at the time, so he ended up getting locked up in a cage with me, and since then, his leg has healed up just fine, aside from the huge scar where the glass sliced through his skin. I didn't really like the idea of letting an actual criminal loose on society at first, but I knew I needed the help, and the guy seemed alright enough. He was always cool with me, and he always acted like he had regrets for what he had done, so I figured that if he promised me not to go back to that life, then I would key him in on what my plan was. He agreed and swore on his life that he wouldn't be giving anyone any reason to be locking him away again, so I made the choice to let him in on the secret. There was a somewhat large vent near the showers that led to some kind of crawl space. It was like an access hatch or something. So we would have to steal utensils from the kitchen where Barney worked in order to loosen the screws and pry open the vent. Together, we enacted our plan, crawling through the access crawl space, which led down a long walkway and finally to a ladder, which led us into the sewage system for the prison. It was pretty gross, to say the least, covered in the worst of human excrement, from the worst of human excrement, and after throwing up once or twice from the smell, we eventually emerged on the other side to the fresh air of the beautiful night sky. We didn't care that we were covered in shit. We felt like we were rolling in $1,000,000. We were free, but we had to get out of there quickly. So, unfortunately, we had to commit one more teensy-weensy little crime. We stole someone's Jeep. It was the only off-road vehicle there, and where we were going, we would need it. So, that probably didn't do me any favors, but I needed it more than they did at the time, and I fully intended on returning it by leaving it on the side of the road somewhere, unharmed. Anyway, we hightailed it out of there, and after Barney made a few phone calls at a nearby truck stop, we made our way to our destination, Locust Lake. I didn't want to take Barney along with me at first. At that point, I just wanted to cut him loose and let him go about his life. But the best place to hide out from society is away from society in a place that not many locals go, due to a string of horrific murders and such. Not a very popular place to be when you know the history of it, though there are always stupid kids like me. You would think that the lake would be the first place they would look for us, returning to the scene of the crime and all. But after years of telling them how terrified I was of the place and that I would never go back there, I guess that convinced them that I was truly afraid of the place, and to be honest, I wasn't lying. Locust Lake really did terrify me, and I really didn't want to go back there. I had to go back there. I had no choice. I had to atone for my sins. I had to kill the butcher of Locust Lake, Casper Stoical. After a long time of nearly non-stop driving, we found ourselves on a dirt road that led up to the lake. That same dirt road that I had went down all those years ago. It brought all these memories flooding back to me, and as we moved up the bumpy path, I felt myself begin to tense up and breathe more heavily, fully expecting a deformed psychopath to jump out of the woods and dismember us at any second. My fingernails dug painfully into my palms as we drew closer to the gates of Locust Lake. Then, the sign came into view. The familiar cursive font across a picture of the lake in the background, and behind it, a long, faded sunset. No one had really been here in the last few years, not since, they say, I killed everyone anyway. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest when we rounded the corner to find the cabins. Everything was pretty much the same as it was when I had left it years ago, aside from a few minor cosmetic changes, and a lot less blood, of course. We parked the car off the road behind the thicket of trees and made our way into the cabin nearest the truck and nearest to the road. We wanted a quick escape, should we have to make one. Barney was thinking of the police. I was thinking of something a bit more sinister. The cabin was pretty dusty, and you could tell that it hadn't been disturbed in quite some time. We gathered some blankets and such from the closet to keep warm, and waited for the friends that Barney had called to show up. It was about an hour or so before we saw some car headlights outside the window. We ducked down, fearing that it may be the cops, but instead, it was an old, burned orange-colored Ford Mustang.
"That's them,"
Barney said with a smile, before jumping to his feet to open the door for them. "Barney fucking Sampson! It's been a while, brother," a man with black, slicked-back hair said as he approached the building, leaving the driver of the car to park it, hidden in the forest.
"Anthony Esposito. 7 long years. But here I am,"
Barney replied, arms outstretched, embracing the man in a hug. "Has it really been that long? Holy shit," Anthony replied, before noticing me standing off to the side. "Who's the kid?" Anthony asked.
"That's my good friend Todd. Without him, I'd still be rotting away in a cell,"
Barney replied with a smile. "Hey man, any friend of Barney's is a friend of mine. If not for this guy, I'd be the one in the cell," Anthony said, reaching out a hand for a handshake, and I politely grasped it. I mean, Anthony said, stumbling over his words for a second, obviously catching himself saying something he shouldn't have.
"It's cool, man. He ain't a snitch,"
Barney reassured him.
"Tony was with me that day at the bank,"
he added. "Yeah, things went south, and before we knew it, the 5-0 were right on our tail. Ricky and I made it to the car, but Barney had one too many cheeseburgers and couldn't keep up. And then there was the glass," Tony said.
"Hey man, those cops weren't your typical donut eaters we usually saw. They brought out the big guns for us,"
Barney spoke.
"Hey, wait. He's not here, is he?"
Barney said, his joking tone turning to one of concern. Tony mumbled, scratching the back of his head and looking away.
"Oh man, come on. It's his stupid ass fault that I was arrested in the first place,"
Barney said, a bit angry with his friend. "It's alright, man. He's grown up a bit since then. He's cool now," Anthony reassured him.
"A bit? He needs a bit more than a bit. His kid's a fucking moron,"
Barney replied. "Relax, man. He's cool," Tony added.
"He better be. I'm not gonna go back there again because of his dumb ass,"
Barney commanded. It was then that we heard some heavy boots stomping up the wooden steps outside before a tall, lanky guy walked through the door.
"Hey, Barney the Purple Dinosaur. How's it going, brother?"
The goofy-looking guy spoke.
"Hey Rick, it's good to be out of prison,"
Barney answered him bluntly.
"Yeah, man. It sucks you didn't make it to the car in time. We can't all be track stars, I guess. I was at the top of my track team in high school, you know?"
Ricky said, completely oblivious to the awkwardness of the situation.
"Yeah, Rick. I guess not,"
Barney replied.
"That's Todd Jacobs. He helped me get out of the joint."
"Who? Todd Jacobs? You mean that fucking psycho that cut up all his kids a few years back? This guy is that freak?"
Rick said, a bit shocked at the reputation that preceded me. "I didn't do it. It was someone else, and they just needed someone to pin it on," I told him.
"Yeah, that's what they all say.
Ricky said, giving me the evil eye. Seriously, man, you have nothing to worry about with me. There's another monster here that you should be more afraid of, though. I added.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck. I'll fucking bullet in him.
Rick said, gripping the gun in his waistband.
He grew up. Tony?
Barney said, a bit mad at his friend for bringing this guy along.
Nobody fucks with Ricky fucking MacLeod.
He yelled out, being a testosterone-driven show-off.
Anyway, speaking of, can we get on with this?
Barney said, looking over to Tony. Oh yeah. Ricky, could you go bring in the bag from the trunk? Tony told him.
Yeah, sure, Tony. No problem.
Ricky said, before strutting back out the door like he was hot shit.
Dude, what the fuck?
Barney said. I'm sorry, man. He means well. Anthony said.
That kid's trigger-happy bullshit is what landed me in prison in the first place, if you haven't forgotten.
Barney said. Yeah, I know. Anthony sighed out loud.
That moron put a teller in the hospital, and I took the fall for it. And you trust him with guns? Are you as dense as he is, man?
Barney said to his friend. Relax, man. It'll be cool. It was then that we were startled by the sound of Rick yelling from outside, and quickly we ran out the door, fully expecting a police raid. But instead, we found Rick freaking out by his car.
Who the fuck did this? I'll fucking kill you.
Rick yelled out into the darkness. The Mustang had a deep gouge out of its back tire, and several long scratches along its side, where a sharp object had obviously been scraped against it, and the exhaust sat broken upon the ground underneath the car.
Hey man, be quiet. No one knows we're here, and you want to keep it that way,
Barney said.
I don't give a fuck who hears me. I want to find the bitch that did this and put a bullet in him.
He yelled out again.
You shut the fuck up, or I'll put a bullet in you.
Barney yelled back at him. Guys, come on, stop, damn. I'll stay here with Rick, and you help put the spare on, and you two go back to the cabin, alright? Just calm down, alright? Anthony suggested. Barney and I agreed and headed back to the cabin, where they jacked up the car to replace the tire. But we weren't back inside for long before we heard another. This one, quite a bit more urgent than the last. We quickly ran back outside just in time to see a large, beastly man kick the car jack out from under the car, crushing Rick's ribcage beneath it and grasping Anthony about the throat before retrieving the pole-like jack from the ground and thrusting it into Anthony's torso like a hot knife through butter, letting out an equally sickening crunch to that of Rick's ribs being crushed beneath the weight of the car, and in just a quick instant, both of them were dead. Both of us turned and took off running, leaving what I assumed was a duffel bag full of guns behind us, because between us and them stood a demon, the Butcher of Locust Lake, Casper Stoical, the thing I had come here to kill.
Who the fuck was that?
Yelled Barney as we ran down the dirt road, completely cut off from our escape vehicle. That's the motherfucker that killed my friends. That's the reason I was locked up in the first place, I replied as we ran. We made it to the road as quickly as possible. We were stopped by red and blue flashing lights. I almost turned and ran back the other direction. We were stuck between a rock and a hard place. Turns out the police did send a couple of cars up to check the camp to see if I was there, and ta-da, there I was.
He's gonna fucking kill us!
Barney yelled.
You have to help!
He continued.
Get on the fucking ground and put your hands behind your head!
Yelled an officer holding a shotgun aimed directly at us. We did as we were told and immediately dropped to our knees, interlocking our fingers behind our heads. 2 of the 4 officers approached us and pulled out their cuffs to take us back to prison. I glanced up to see the name tags of the arresting officers. An Asian man with a crew cut with a name tag reading Juan was the one that slapped the cuffs on me, while a darker-skinned woman with the name of Argento put the chain bracelets on Barney. I'm Sheriff Corman, and I'm afraid you boys are going back to prison. A man with blonde hair sticking out from under his hat said as he approached the 2 of us.
Good! Get us the fuck out of here before he kills us!
Barney yelled. Then, all hell broke loose. A shotgun blast rang out from near the cars. The fourth officer was now held, suspended several feet off the ground by his throat. He had attempted to fight off the offending monster with his gun, but the tall figure had overpowered him. The monstrous man, clad in a black trench coat, then grasped the gun and pushed its barrel upward toward the man, thrusting it violently past his teeth and breaking them along the way until the barrel of the shotgun was lodged into the man's mouth, before moving his hand down the gun to push down the trigger, splattering the officer's brains all over the police car beside him. The remaining officers unleashed a hail of bullets upon the monster, but it was as if nothing even fazed him, and as he approached us, I managed to get a better look at him. His face was covered by what appeared to be some kind of ripped-up t-shirt or something, and under it, his skin was melted, as if he were in some kind of fire. He wasn't the demon that I knew. He was something completely different. Officer Argento was the next to go when the tall man grabbed her by the face and lifted her off the ground in a very similar fashion as her comrade before her. This was followed by the sickening sound of her skull being crushed between his fingers as her brain squeezed out into a gore-filled ooze from her eyes and ears before her head collapsed in upon itself. He then let her practically decapitated body fall to the ground. The other officers had stopped shooting at that point, realizing that their guns weren't doing anything, and also causing me to realize I was stupid to think that with enough firepower we could kill Casper Stoical. I was wrong. No amount of firepower short of a nuclear missile was going to stop these things. The four of us turned tail and ran from the monster, Barney and I sticking close to Officer Juan, while Sheriff Corman split off into the darkness of the forest. Officer Juan ran toward the camp, and we followed. What else could we do? We had our hands cuffed behind our backs, while not one, but now two disfigured psychopaths were trying to kill us. We quickly found ourselves back at the cabin that we had been hiding out in when Officer Juan ducked inside to hide from the monsters outside.
What the fuck was that?
Officer Juan asked in a panic as he began barricading the door and windows with whatever he could find. I don't know, I replied, still in a bit of shock that Casper wasn't the only beast in town and that our guns were useless to stop them.
I didn't sign up for this. I should have stayed in the city where we just had crackheads and assaults, and I could go home to my comfy little apartment. It wasn't much, but it was sure as hell a lot better than a cabin in the woods with an immortal psycho killer outside.
Officer Juan said.
2.
Barney corrected him.
What?
Said Officer Juan.
2. There's 2 of them.
Barney answered.
Well, that's just great. 2 psycho killers on the outside, and 2 psycho criminals on the inside.
The officer said, his hand still quivering on his gun. I didn't kill anyone. It was one of them. You guys just blamed it on me, I said calmly.
Yeah, right. You expect me to believe that?
Officer Juan added. You just filled a guy with an entire clip and he kept coming. You watched him crush a woman's head in his hand. And you still think a 16-year-old kid stuck a metal pipe through 2 people's heads? I asked him matter-of-factly. The officer didn't know what to say, and he didn't have any time to say anything anyway, because in that moment, we were all startled by the sound of gunfire outside. The 3 of us gathered around the windows and peered around the barricades set up by Officer Juan. Outside, we could see Sheriff Corman stumbling over a log as he unloaded his entire clip in the direction of the approaching beast. The familiar stitchwork mask made it clear that it was Casper once again.
We have to help him,
Officer Juan said as he began to remove the barricade, but Barney used his large frame to knock the man off balance and to the floor.
What the hell are you doing?
The officer yelled.
If you go out there, we're all dead,
Barney told him, looking down at the cowering officer. I then watched as Casper gripped the man around the back of his neck as he attempted to crawl away. He screamed in terror, kicking, screaming, trying desperately to free himself from the butcher's grasp. But Casper had other plans. He dragged the sheriff to the nearby water pump, where people could hand pump water out of an underground well, and there he forced the man's mouth over the end of the pump until the spout made his cheeks bulge unnaturally. Then, as Casper held the struggling sheriff on the metal spigot with one hand, his other hand began to pump the water out and into the sheriff's mouth. Some of it began to spill out around his cheeks at first, but Casper just forced his mouth further onto the spout, causing his jaw to gape and his teeth to break. Blood mixing with the water that filled his mouth, and then his lungs, as the constant water pumping began to make his body expand after long since falling limp. Then, Casper dropped the lifeless, bloated corpse onto the ground, letting the water gush out of every orifice in which it could escape.
You need to let us out of these cuffs, man,
Barney said to Officer Wan.
Are you crazy? Even if he didn't kill anyone, you still robbed a bank. You want me to trust you?
The officer replied.
We're waiting for that fucker to go away, and then we're gonna get the fuck out of here.
Officer Wan said, and we couldn't really do much to argue. So, we waited for Casper to take off. After we were sure that the coast was clear, despite our objections, the officer began to remove the barricades from the door, and after the door was clear, he poked his head out to have a better look. Then, after deciding that the coast was clear, he pulled out his flashlight to shine it into the darkness to make sure that Casper was no longer around. And after deciding that all was safe, he stepped out onto the wooden deck around the front of the cabin and signaled for us to follow. We began to approach the door, but as we did so, we watched a large hand reach out from around the doorframe and snatch the big maglite out of the officer's hand before pounding it repeatedly into the officer's skull with several sickening crunching noises, smashing the bones in the man's face and the skull to its side. Officer Wan was able to withstand 3 violent swings from the large flashlight before dropping to the ground like a sack of potatoes. With the death of the only officer left, we pushed past Casper and once again ran back down the road towards the entrance to the camp. But unfortunately, Barney wasn't quite fast enough. Casper reached out with one massive arm and grabbed a hold of the chain between the handcuffs, holding his arms in place behind his back. This caused Barney to jerk violently backwards, dislocating both of his arms in the process. He screamed out in pain and fell limp, his arms being further jerked upward by Casper, who then proceeded to pull poor Barney's arms towards the sky, causing his shoulders to rotate far beyond where they should, until finally Casper yanked roughly backwards, ripping through the skin from the armpits and up around the arms until both his upper limbs were torn violently away from his torso. Luckily for him, he passed out from the shock after the initial dislocation of both shoulders, and he probably didn't feel much of anything after that. I wanted to help him, but I couldn't have done anything. So I ran. I ran and ran until I was on paved road once again. At which point my string of bad luck continued when the dark-colored sedan pulled up beside me. Before I knew it, I was against the car, being frisked for weapons. It was Detective Gregory Benjamin, the very same detective that was put on my case, and the very same guy who had put the evidence together to convict me. Apparently, he had heard news of my escape and was coming to look for me. It was just like before. The same outcome. I was blamed for the murders that I did not commit. And right back in prison I would go, just like before. I brought people to that camp, and I got them killed. But no more. I decided then and there that I was going to find a way to kill the monsters at Locust Lake. I was going to end the curse by any means necessary. I decided that I would gather together a compilation of the stories of victims of that camp, and maybe in doing so, I could piece together a way to kill the evil, a way to kill the curse. My curse. This is my journal.
Well, it seems that not only was old Todd innocent after all, but that he may have some insights for us yet. and it's always the scapegoats that know the most about the truth, though the dead ones never get to speak it. But if you have a hankering for more horror delight, stop by again next weekend, and until then, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can catch you all again next Saturday.